Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Men and Sex. I'm your host, Mr. Wood. This podcast is all about normalizing conversations around the taboo subjects, especially sexuality, masturbation. And on this podcast, I like to interview men from all over the world to hear their relationship to sexuality. And I also like to interview teachers, educators. Today, I have an educator. Her name is Lona. She's a sexual bliss coach, neo-tantra teacher. We live in a similar community. We've been crossing paths, but we've never dove into a conversation before, so I'm excited to get into it. Lona, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ian. Yeah, we've been sort of floating around each other for a little while here, and I'm glad we're finally jumping into the deep end here.
Yeah. So I would love to hear, this is just randomly coming to me. What brought you into this? What brought you into wanting to work with sexuality, neo-tantra, these subjects? What was your journey that was just like, I got to do this type of work in the world?
Yeah, well, I've always been part of my trauma was hypersexuality, so I've always been extremely sexual and in a way that people sort of shamed me for it throughout my life. And so I've gone through my own process of reclaiming the sacredness, the power in sexuality. And I sort of discovered Tantra through witchcraft, through sex magic. And then I got on this whole Tantra kick and just absolutely have loved diving into this pool where we learn that sexuality isn't something separate from the spiritual, but it's actually one of the paths through to a spiritual life, to a full life lived. And so I got this new perspective on sexuality, and I wanted to help other people. I wanted to show other people that your sexuality isn't something to be afraid of, to be ashamed of, to be guilty about, but to radically fully accept all of you in your sexuality and beyond your sexuality. And I believe that's how we're going to liberate the planet, truly.
Now, I know you work with men, but I know that you also work with women, and I feel like this is huge work on the female side of things too, just because even though men have been shamed for sexuality and men have been told, don't do this, you can only do that, I feel like women, females have gotten even more of denial of pleasure, be the virgin, don't be the whore, don't be the prostitute. And for one, it's absolutely insane to me that this has been done, like, because that was for sure led by men. And it totally, those men shot all of us in the foot, those men, because now we have a bunch of women disconnected from their pleasure, not fulfilled, not satiated, struggling to even have orgasms. Like, we are in quite a hole right now when it comes to our relationship to pleasure. So, uh, I'm curious your thoughts on that in connection to females and women, what they're facing.
Yeah, gosh, women have been facing this for a long fucking time. And what they did in the patriarchy was they tried to frame it as men versus women. And so they put women below men, and then they tried to empower men to be on the top. But this was a secret. This wasn't what was actually intended. That's what they told us. The real truth is it's the powerful versus the unpowerful. So they wanted to preserve their power, and only men could hold power. So that's why it was easy to make it look like this. And so what they did was they destroyed this connection between the men and the women so that the women were in this subservient role. And what we'll find out through later in this conversation is that it's an easy role for many women to take. It's a natural role of this submissive role of wanting to serve your man. It's an amazing aspect of being in the feminine, but they demonized that. They cut a hot knife through that, and they made it so that was the only choice. And I don't believe that that can be the only choice for men or for women. I
Yeah.
believe that we get this amazing opportunity to choose exactly what we want.
Yeah.
And through making this separation, we not only cut off the power of women, because through sexuality, you will realize your deepest and greatest power and be able to channel it into the world. They wanted to take that, especially from the witches, whoever they thought were witches back then.
Mm.
And by doing this, they actually disempowered the masculine too, because we know that through this polarity, that through especially straight relationships, through this polarity, we gain power together. And so we
Yeah.
are empowered in ourselves together in relationship with each other through that polarity. And when you cut off one of the sides of polarity, the other side doesn't just get more powerful, it falls too.
Yeah.
So they disempowered men as well through this cutting off women from their sexuality. And so it just puts them at the top. The people who pull the strings is what they perceive
Yeah.
as the people still at the top. And now I think it took men a lot longer to realize that they also had fallen
Yeah.
because they're sort of believing that they're in this like male top with the powerful people. So women have been on this journey of reclaiming that power for a lot longer, I believe, than men have.
Yeah.
And men are just now, I think, realizing that their power was taken too. You cannot cut off the feminine from her sexual power and expect the men to be able to drop into it because she is the vessel through which he comes into his own
Mm.
masculine sexual power.
Mm.
So I think it's amazing that we're talking about this because these are the kind of conversations that I want to talk about.
Beautiful. Yeah, and we're really seeing it today that men are struggling and men are not fulfilled, not satiated, not feeling satisfied in whether it's their own relationship to sexuality themselves or their intimate relationship. And we're talking about women here. And that's what, I love it right now because we have the opportunity to be like, we're in this together.
Mhm.
That I want my female feminine partner to be nourished, to be satiated, to be fulfilled. I want her to know her cycle. I want her to be deeply practicing with pleasure and on her own and learning that relationship. Like I want that for her because I know that we're together. And obviously I want the same for myself. Like I want
Yeah.
to come into that relationship not desperate for her to fulfill me because I don't know how to pleasure myself or I don't know how to be in intimate connection with myself. So I'm coming to her starving. So yes, really understanding that we're in this together. And I'm so grateful. A lot of my energy in working with men has been watching female teachers doing what they're doing. I worked with a female teacher for a long time that was leading women in their own practice, but there was nothing for the men. And I was just like, okay, we need this too. We're in our heads. We're so disconnected from our bodies. Men desperately need this together. So I love this feeling of in this timeline that we're in this together to feel fulfilled, satiated, so we have the resources to, yeah, really grow and expand together.
Yeah. And a lot of women in the coaching program that I did Layla Martin's Vita coaching program, which is an outstanding program. Only women are allowed in though. So it's just women or the feminine that are allowed in, but you can specialize in different things. And I decided to specialize in male sexuality along with female sexuality as well. But I started with male sexuality because I was finding I was like really called to work with men. I was felt like there was this huge like aspect we were missing if we're not like calling in the men to this project as well. And through talking to a lot of the other coaches that I went through the training with, they don't want to work with men because they're like, I don't have a cock. I don't know how it works. I don't want to know. I'm scared to work with men. There's also, I saw a lot of like trauma coming up of like, because we guide people through like sexual experiences in the coaching, and so they were like worried of like how to hold it with another man, and that never bothered me. I was always like, let's go, like let's experience it. So I feel like there is like this gap in knowledge in the feminine, like sharing and expressing to the masculine, like how to hold their masculinity, like how to be in their most epic pleasure, how to create connection through each other, and then just how to like have create a masculinity that works for them. Because I say this a lot. If anyone tells you the feminine is one thing, they have no idea what the feminine is. And if anyone tells you the masculine is one thing, they have no idea what the
Yeah,
masculine is. We
totally.
are multitudes, we are dimensional through that. So we get to pick and choose like how the masculine like flows through each one of us. And so it really gives them an opportunity to like claim the masculinity that is most authentic to them. And I love this work.
Well, thank you. And I'm grateful for women that I meet in that position because it's very needed. And I think, there's, as a man, there are lessons that I can't pass to a man that a woman can. And in the same way, there are lessons that a woman can't pass to a man that I can. And so I think it's needed in the same way that I love working with female teachers and I love working with male teachers because the lessons are just different. And I, yeah, it's been amazing to be able to work with both men and women on this path. So we're not here to talk about this though, listeners. We're here to dive into some real juicy stuff. So let's jump into the juiciness. I'm sure we could talk about this next subject for a long time. So before Lona and I got on the call, we were just back and forthing of like, what do we want to talk about? One of my favorite things to ask teachers that are coming on, to ask educators is what lights you up? What turns you on? What subjects do you like to talk about? And then they share, and then I'm kind of like, oh yeah, that one gets me on too. So we started, we got into a subject that is a something we both closely connect to in our lives. And it's something that I think is percolating out in the world, but there isn't an in-depth conversation about it. And that's the role of what's called the daddy. Some call it the daddy dom. And this is a role that is, would you say, is this, I actually don't know the answer to this. Does this only exist in heterosexual man to woman, or does this exist outside of that?
No, I know some lesbians who prefer the daddy title, or you'll often see women go with like the mommy title.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, I would say it can be either gender or whatever gender you'd like.
Yes. Okay, beautiful. Hey, I'm already learning things here. And so, why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with this and why it lights you up, and then I'll come back with some of my own experience.
Yes, and just to allay everyone's fears, I also thought it was disgusting for partners to call their partner daddy. Like before I met my current partner, Sweet Potato, I used to be like absolutely disgusted by this. Like, if you called your partner daddy in front of me, I would have berated you for saying that in front of me because I have this super distorted image or like relationship with my own father. I'm like the epitome of daddy issues, like so many daddy issues, we could barely even count them. Starting from when I was like 7 all the way up until he died a few years ago. And so really had this like really difficult relationship with my own father. And I never wanted to invite that into the bedroom until I met my current partner. And he is so sweet. When we first met, we're polyamorous. And so when we first met, I had another girlfriend and he had 3 other play partners. And I'm the kind of partner who's like, I want to know all the details. So it's like, tell me everything that they have given you consent to tell me. And so he had one partner that was like a rope bunny, and I really wanted to try rope stuff, and we tried rope stuff. He had one partner that was like a huge masochist who really loves pain. And so I tried it out. I don't think I'm a masochist. I like a little bit of pain, but not too much. And then he had a partner that was a daddy little girl. They call it DDLG, daddy little girl. And I was disgusted by this one. I was like, why would you do that? I can never even imagine a scenario where I would like this. And I was like, don't tell me any details. But through the months of us first starting to date, I was like, he kept going to see this girl. And I was like, do you like being called daddy? And he was like, yeah, I do like being called daddy. And I was like, wow, I have been shaming you this entire time. I am so sorry. Like, why would you like that? And so it really opened this like curiosity gap for me, even though it was very tiny at first, where he started to tell me like what it was really about. And so he would tell me stuff like he would like nurture her in the way that she would like maybe she would choose to misbehave, and then she wanted to feel like he still cared about her even when she misbehaved. So it was like sort of like testing the boundaries of what was right, but still being loved and cared for afterwards. And I started to be like, that okay, that kind of sounds kind of nice. Like I'm kind of a little bit interested. And so through more conversations and him telling me more amazing things, like having that like caregiver, especially for me who had a caregiver that was just my mother, and she had to be extremely masculine to like raise me because of course I was a difficult person to raise. So I had this really distorted image of like what a mother even was or what a father was. And so to get this like impression of like a caring, loving father seemed like it was breaking my mind. It was like not making any sense to me. So one day I was like, the curiosity has gotten me, which I'm always a curious person. So like the curiosity easily gets me. I'll try anything twice, you know? And so one day I was like, okay, for the next, 5 hours, I'm going to call you daddy. And we're just going to see what happens. And so he was excited. He, of course, never pressured me in any way to like do this dynamic. It was like all my idea. And he was as shocked as I was because he was like, I never thought that you would be into this because of how much you shamed this. So we tried it out for like 5 hours. I was like, just tonight, I'm only giving you this permission tonight. And it was a little bit awkward at first, but then there was like this rush of like endorphins. There was like this relaxation in my body when I like gave myself permission to like just call him daddy. And I was obsessed. From that night on, I was like, forever now, I will call you daddy, and we're gonna just see where this fucking goes, right?
Mm. I think the word that you really hit for me there is around caregiver.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought in that boundaries piece of testing a boundary purposefully, but there being love always there. Because I think that's two key ingredients that we want, particularly when we're developing, is to be able to explore, but we need to know that there's someone there that's kind of telling us which way to go. That helps us to feel safe. But what most people experience is they don't have someone there to hold the boundaries, or if someone's there holding the boundaries, they're too aggressive, they're abusive, they're toxic, they're not functional. So that combination of boundaries in a loving way has so much of the essence that I think so many are missing. And obviously we're particularly talking here about women in connection to men. And of course, of all the relationships, it's with father over mother. If we talk about statistics, the problem usually leads to dad. And so it makes so much sense. And I'm curious, looking back, looking back, what do you see were the main things that you had wrong that made you feel like ick?
I thought it was like let's try pedophilia kind of thing. I thought it was like you want to pretend that I'm a child because you're like attracted to children. I never could get past until I did that it was like this pedophilic thing. And of course my own father and his own he had his own issues, of course, with touching children. And so there it was really hard for like the trauma in my past to like get through. I was like, are you actually like a pedophile and we're just pretending here?
Yeah.
But when we look at it through this caregiver lens, it makes so much more sense. Like, of course, I want someone to love me and to tell me to brush my teeth at the end of the day and to just like support me and someone I can be like needy to. Because I think one of my big issues that came from my trauma was that I was desperate for male attention. And I felt like there was this huge hole in my life that could never be filled by a man, that like I felt like I just needed this like unattainable male attention from whoever my partners were at the time. So I thought like maybe if I had lots of partners that were men, that like maybe that could fill the void, but that still didn't fill the void. And so I started to see the trauma as like, okay, I'm never gonna get this filled, so I might as well try to heal it in different ways. And I did try to heal it in different ways, but it was like more like I could just like look away from the hole and feel okay with it. But like if I looked back at the hole, it was impossible to deal with. But through having a daddy, I asked him like up front, I was like, is there like a limit to my neediness that I could have? And he was like, there's no limit to the neediness. Like you can tell me you love me however many times you want. You can text me however many times you want. You can like pour out like your declarations of love all the time. You can tell me what you need. And so through that lens of like getting the ultimate male attention that I ever could through this caregiver relationship, I like don't need male attention anymore. It's like crazy to me how much this has healed in especially that aspect of my trauma where I really feel like I can get like everything that I need from the masculine and not feel like I'm like a burden to him. Like he's taken on this responsibility of like taking on this role. And I would say to all the guys listening, like this is a huge role to take on in someone's life.
Yeah.
And I would even say, like, it's so tough because, like, if you're going to break up with someone that you have this dynamic with, you have to, like, ease yourself out of the dynamic. And you can't, like, have that really hard break because I'm opening myself up to, like, really difficult trauma. Like, if something went wrong in this relationship, I have to prepare myself that, like, that has nothing to do with, like, my old trauma.
Yeah.
So it would be very difficult to go through. So it's like a huge responsibility for especially the daddy part.
Do you feel like it's completely different, or do you feel like there's some elements from Dom sub dynamics in the DDLG relationship? Are some of those dynamics in there as well?
Yeah, I think it is a power dynamic because I'm sort of like giving up some of my power to him, and he's like taking on the power of being in this like, we're like unbalancing the roles. But what I love about it is we're always equals. Like, no
Yeah.
matter what happens, we're always equals. We're choosing to give this power dynamic energy
Yeah.
because there's something in there. There's something about giving away that power and getting that power, and he has kind of like the opposite trauma of me in the sense that he doesn't see his worth as much. He was like, his father like almost never told him he loved him. He was very like emotionally unavailable. And so he sort of has this hole in his life where he wishes that he could feel worthy. He wishes he could like live up to the standards of his own father. So I almost give him that same experience where by giving him this power, I give him the opportunity to feel that like in my eyes he is like the most amazing person in the world, and so I give him this opportunity to also feel that he is valued, that he is worthy, that he is loved, because I'm able to give him this power.
For me, in my path, I really saw that the one of the things that I struggled with was assertiveness, clarity of desire, um, yeah, just that directionality, that penetrative energy and just direct focused energy. This dynamic in my own life has been incredibly beneficial for me to stand in that place. That is, okay, yes, someone's giving me this power differential. They're putting me in this position and taking me on in that way to care, to nurture for them and direct them in many ways, to ask me for my guidance, to ask me for my leadership. And so I've been practicing that intentionally of being in that position to really hone in that skill of being more and more clear and decisive as a skill that I am practicing within that dynamic. And I think one of the biggest problems that we're facing in the world right now with men is, and we know because the book was so popular, which is No More Mr. Nice Guy. There's a
Mm.
lot of men that have been castrated, that have been told don't be a toxic male, that have grown up with single moms that told them how bad men were. There's so many different pathways that have led to men not being assertive, not being penetrative, not being present or direct, and in a position from a calm, grounded place to direct and lead from. So I think that there's some potent medicine in this conversation, both in DDLG and Dom Sub, where I think men can cultivate themselves by looking at, okay, what does it take to be a dom or to be in the daddy role? What does it take for that? And for me, I just was reading and studying and learning and then practicing. Like for a while, I would wake up in the morning and I would just journal like 10 in a row. This is what I want and this is how I want it. And I would just be getting those reps in of clarity around decisiveness and stuff. I really believe what we're talking about here has qualities for men to really look at and learn from, to step more into their personal power in a healthy way, not in a cover up my insecurities kind of way. And you work with men, so I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, this is actually the number one thing I deal with most of my male clients is that they have like cut off this aspect of their masculinity because they're afraid to be seen as this like assertive, like take charge kind of guy. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's precious that they are so caring and that they are worried. Like I think that that's a necessary step between, you know, toxic masculinity, but I also get to give them the permission of like, you can still be assertive and it not be toxic. You can still be decisive and make decisions and care and show up in a really masculine way. And that doesn't necessarily make it toxic. So I've seen a ton of the men that have gone through my program really come face to face with like, what does that masculinity really look like through me? And giving them the opportunity to name the aspects that come natural to them. And like, not every man is going to be a leader. It's not going to be like running a company, but he can be a leader in his own life. He can be a leader in, you know, just waking up and asking himself what he wants for breakfast and like deciding like it's going to be eggs and bacon today. And then he goes out and he does it. And so it's also like creating these like daily ways for him to like feel into his masculine power and then see how it shows up for him, because how it shows up for you is going to be totally different than how it shows up for another guy, and we're going to see similar threads in the masculinity, but really like giving them permission to just be who they are. I think i think that this is really the work. Like, again, like I said, I think women have been on this journey for a long time of like reclaiming like our power. And
Yeah.
we're really seeing this like sort of new burgeoning of men figuring it out for themselves and figuring it out in a way that is welcoming to other men. Because I think that when men get together and when they talk together and when they create things together, you know, even in spaces where it's like, you know, women aren't allowed, where they can really drop in, I think that's where a lot of the magic happens. And when you look at like the neuroscience of men versus women, like men are always going to be pushed more when they're in a group of men. Like
Right.
if you, there was a study done that like it was like a driving test and it was just a dude alone, like no one was even in the room, and he like just drove regular, and then as soon as a couple other guys were in the room, he's like on the sidewalks, he's like running over pedestrians. So it really is like, how can we take that aspect of like men wanting to show off a little bit for other men, and how can we create amazing things with it? How can we create systems and societies and communities where we all push each other to be the best, most amazing, liberated versions of ourselves?
I love that. And obviously, I'm a huge believer of that. And it's one of the reasons why I love men's retreats and doing and doing that deep work together. And it's interesting because what you're talking about, what we really see in the world on a large scale is the shadow version of that, which is men being exposed to porn at a super young age and holding themselves in that same way of I'm surrounded by men and I'm gonna up level. The shadow version is watching porn and being like, oh, that competitive nature is there, but it's kind of a collapse into shame of I'll never be that. My dick's not that big. I can't last that long, whatever it is. So there's that male comparison, but it's in a way that men are collapsing instead of expanding and feeling more powerful, which I think these subjects and I think the community. I haven't been to any of your events, but I think some a lot of what you address in your communities and what I hope to address in my communities is having men come together where we're encouraging each other to expand and be larger, to take up more space, to be more confident, to use, like you said, utilize that in a good way that we can be bigger, not smaller.
Yeah, I think if we can tap into this natural ability or this natural inclination for men to want to be like their peers, and women essentially want to do this as well, but you see it more in men. I think that this is one of the aspects of how we can change the conversation. Because if we put a bunch of men in a room and we're like, talk about porn, they're going to talk about porn. But if we put a bunch of men in a room and we're like, talk about how to not watch porn, then they're all going to start getting ideas of how to like stop this addiction. And I don't think porn is the enemy, but
Yeah,
I think that it's so easy to become addicted to it
yeah.
that it rewires your brain. And a lot of the men that I work with started watching porn at like 5 years old, at like 9 years old. And what is that doing to their brains when it comes to sexuality? And what I'm seeing through the work is that it's doing a lot. And so, really, like trying to break that addiction to the porn is one of the huge aspects. I used to be addicted to porn. Like, it can happen to anyone. And like, I realized, like, when my computer died and I like couldn't come, I was like, maybe I have a problem here. So
Yeah.
I also know a lot about this one as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Yeah, and I always think similarly that it is a symptom of something deeper, which
Yeah,
is it's the disconnection to healthy arousal, to healthy turn on, to healthy embodiment, to fulfilling sexuality that similarly, like when you got that relationship in your daddy dynamic with your partner, instantly it fell away, you needing all this attention from other people.
yeah,
And so it's just another piece in the puzzle where we can work with these things within our intimate relationships and let kind of these symptoms subside.
yeah. And even one thing with even watching Sweet Potato not like kick the porn addiction is that he realized that he wasn't actually getting turned on. He just wanted to watch some porn. And then that like leads you down the path of masturbating and coming. And when he stopped watching the porn, he realized he had this like more authentic connection to his actual desire. So it wasn't like 12 times a day he wanted to masturbate, but a couple times a day because that's who he is. But he also got this opportunity to like see it through a new lens. So I don't know if you talk about this a lot on the podcast, but I think it's like worth looking into of like how much is the porn actually leading my decisions around my sexuality?
One of the important things that I think we should talk about in this subject is how can men go into practicing this maybe in a relationship where there isn't actually this dynamic. But I still think we as men can go into practicing these attributes, these things that allow us to be more in that confidence, in that leadership, in that, I feel like I'm standing taller when I think about it. It's like
Mhm.
I don't even think men have to actually be in a dynamic where those words are being used to still expand and grow with some of these attributes to strengthen themselves and show up more confidently.
Yeah, because I think even without the words, so if we remove daddy from the conversation, caring for your woman will always drop her into her feminine. So if you're showing up and instead of like taking from her, but giving to her, and you're like, hey, this is where we're going to dinner tonight or on Friday, and I want to buy you a dress. Like, here's like my credit card, like, go buy yourself a dress. And mowing the lawn without having her to ask, and like taking care of the children, like taking it as your responsibility too to take care of the children. I think that it becomes like this caregiving dynamic without the titles. So even if, the titles still horrify you like they did me for so long, there's this aspect of if you want her to be in her feminine, which is where her creativity is going to come from, which is where her surrender is going to come from, which is where her subservience is going to come from if she wants to. If you allow her to drop into those things and be in her mess and be in her chaos and be in her heart and her love, that is going to feed you as her masculine partner, because this is where all of the energy exists in the relationship. The feminine pole is where everything expands. The masculine pole directs, the feminine pole expands. And so if you allow her to drop into all those amazing things, that's only going to make it better for you. So if you're sitting there thinking like, oh, I have to do all of these things, the output for you is going to be tenfold whatever you put into it, because now you're giving her this opportunity to give back to you. The feminine wants to give back to you. That is our highest expression, is to be in love. Whereas the masculine, the highest expression is often purpose and direction. Whereas the feminine just wants to be in her heart, be in her love, be in relationship to you, and you're only ever going to get amazing things when she is like authentically and truly in her feminine.
And yeah, when we talk about these attributes, also for the listeners is to be aware that right now, one of the things we're facing is men are less in their masculine pole, their masculine attributes, and women are more in their masculine attributes. So once again, we are very in this together. And one of the most important things to step into this territory as a man is to be resourced. If you're constantly stressed and overwhelmed, this is not a role that you can hold. If you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed, if you're like way behind on your to-do list, if you're constantly trying to catch up, this isn't a role that you're going to be able to hold very well because you can't take care of what's going on in your own life. You don't have the capacity to lead in that way. If that resonates for you, if you want to feel more fulfillment and step into that position in your relationship, you've got to take care of the day to day and the habits that are leading to you getting behind or feeling overwhelmed and stressed because these all of these play together and you being in a position that you can actually hold that role, be caretaking, thinking ahead, giving to the partner, you have to be resourced. And so that's your main focus if you want to step into that role and you're feeling that that aligns like that stress, that overwhelm, and you don't have the capacity. And for me, I'll just speak personally as I've become more resourced and practiced and learned about being in this position, it is it is so nourishing. Me being in that role and then having women in my life hold that pillar and putting me there is it's blown my mind. It's how nourishing it's been in the way that we show up for each other because they feel nourished by me thinking ahead and planning and organizing and holding those details. And then they're just feeling open and juicy and that nourishment just comes right back to me.
This is what I say. Daddy gets whatever he wants. Like, daddy gets literally anything he wants all the time, no matter what it is. I will do anything for daddy because daddy does anything for me. So it's such a reciprocal relationship. Like if you want like more sex with your woman, if you want more head from your woman, if you want her to clean the house more, if you take on this role of caregiver of her, all that stuff is just going to naturally happen because she's getting everything she needs from you. She's fulfilled in her love, in her feminine core. And so I have unlimited energy to give to him absolutely anything that he wants.
The word that comes to mind as you talk about that is generative.
Yeah.
And we're using this polarity and care for each other to be generative. And I think that this is how relationship can, and I don't often use this word, but I will here purposefully, should be, because in that process, we're energizing each other, we're giving to each other, and we're magnifying it. And yes, there are going to be things that come up, as you talked about earlier. There are going to be traumas or beliefs or patterns, behaviors that we have to face in that dynamic as we're expanding together that then we face together, or we go to the men's group, you go to the women's group, whatever it is. So in that process, we're constantly expanding internally in so many ways. And for me, that's what I want in a partnership. I want in partnerships to be bettering each other's lives. And I think so many relationships, that's not happening anymore. There's just a familiarity and a comfort that can't be broken.
Yeah, and with a lot of my female clients, what I'm finding is that they're getting drained from their relationships. So their partner comes to them wanting all of these things, wanting them to be the perfect wife, the perfect partner, the perfect sex toy. And when they don't feel that overflowingness coming from their relationship, it gets all murky and it turns into this like weird like friendship, like roommate situation where we're just like taking care of these kids. And I would say even those relationships can be saved, but you can't keep doing the thing that you keep doing. You can't keep expecting the same result, a different result from the same thing. So really dropping into and discovering like what kind of man do you truly want to show up as, knowing that that's going to be the fuel that she has to give to you.
Yeah, and this one's so important for me, which is if you find yourself focusing on what needs to be different in your partner's behavior more than you're focusing on your own growth, you know you've got something messy in here, and it's going to kill your relationship. That we as men, particularly as we talk about moving into this daddy role or a dominant role, we have to be looking at bettering ourselves first. Yes, we can look at our partners and have judgments of behaviors and things that we want shifted, boundaries, agreements, all that. But that's a flag for me that if I'm paying attention constantly to what my partner's doing wrong and I'm nowhere near paying attention to all the things that I want to shift in myself or I could better in myself, I probably got my blinders up to the things that are habits that have been playing out for a long time, and I'm in a victim state, and that is not where the energy for a juicy, sexy relationship's going to exist.
Because, guys, if you're thinking, I want my female partner to have more sex with me, the real question is, how do I create the situation where she wants to have sex with me? Like, it really is fully on you. Obviously, she can have some traumas. There can be some things blocking. And of course, there's lots of different ways to explore that now. But when it's two humans who are like meeting each other pretty authentically, if you're not creating the space where she feels safe, where she feels loved, where she feels cared for, and these are all daddy traits. Of course, these are daddy traits because that is essentially what we're hitting at is that I don't really crave a new daddy. I crave someone who wants to give me that safety and that love and that care. And when I get those things, I can be wildly erotic. I can be such a kinky monster. And that it wasn't anything I had to do. Obviously, I had my own trauma that I had to heal, especially around daddy. But by giving me those things, I could discover what I authentically wanted through that. So also just a disclaimer here, don't go to your partner and be like, "Hey, I want you to call me daddy."
Yeah.
That's not going to work either. But really getting into these deep conversations of like, what if daddy could be this caring and this loving and this respectful thing? And maybe that terminology doesn't match up with what we want, but like, is that something that you want in your life? Do you want safety? Do you want to feel totally safe to explore all of your sexuality with me? Do you want to feel cared for, that no matter what happens here, I'm still going to care at the end of this? And the same for love. Do you want to be loved no matter what happens through this situation? Then you probably do want this caregiver type dynamic. No matter what you call it, you could call it, Fred and Tina, whatever you call it. But truly getting deep with your partner about like, would our sex life be better if you had those things?
Mm. I'm feeling resonance of a past version of me that I think would be helpful to speak to. And that was in my last relationship. There's a commonality that I think most relationship face, we call it the honeymoon phase. And usually when the honeymoon phase ends, that's when the sex starts to be less and less. And I think a lot of men that could use this practice of moving into more of the daddy role or the dom role, what happens for us and what happened to me is I start to shrink and I start to fear things are going wrong and the things of insecurities come up and it becomes a collapsing and I initiate less because I'm afraid that I'll be rejected and it's a spiraling down. It's totally a plane crashing. And what I learned exiting my last relationship was what was needed there was for me to really lead and step up in taking care of my internal world so that I could hold that pillar, but not from a needy place, not from that little, the wounded inner boys that are like, oh, mommy's not gonna love me anymore. I'm not gonna be resourced. I'm not getting the things that I want. And that collapse, I think, was a big part of the demise of that relationship and was a huge catalyst for me to see and go on that path of, okay, what are some of the attributes of a dom? What are some of the attributes of being in that assertive? And I geeked out, 50 Shades of Grey, like went through all the most like common things, and then they took me down these rabbit holes to be like, what are the attributes of someone that's in this position? And I just kept seeing like that assertiveness, that clarity, that groundedness, that just that I think of a magnifying glass when you put it in the sunshine and then how it burns something because it's all focused in one spot. And so if you're a man that maybe you've seen that in your own relationship, the sex has started to dwindle and maybe you felt yourself shrink, like this is calling you forward, or maybe you connect with the Mr. Nice Guy. It's like learn, go into the movie, go into the book, look up resources of what kind of attributes these men have and see how you can grow in this way. And it will only expand your life. It will only give you more tools to work with. And it's incredibly fun.
Yeah, one thing I like to tell people is like BDSM is so much more than what you think it is when you first discover it. So, BDSM could be all sorts of different ways of relating to a partner and dropping into your pleasure or your pain. And I would say there are dozens of different archetypes. We call them archetypes in spirituality. We call them um, titles in BDSM. So, yes, there's like daddy, little girl. That's one of them. But there's also, have you ever done like hunter and prey? So this is like a really wild one too, where it's like the dom is the hunter and you're like searching for the prey and the prey is like running and hiding and trying to get away. So there's also like pet play. We have a lot of different titles that we work with, a lot of different dynamics that we work with. And so we do puppy play and owner. So he's also like my owner and I just get to be a stupid little puppy. And I love one of the things I love about that one is that I get to be stupid because I'm like big,
Ooh.
powerful lady. I own my
Yeah.
own company. I like
Yeah.
do my own thing. I like
Yeah.
live my big, powerful life.
Yeah.
And so I need a space where I can like, I don't have to answer questions. I don't have to like be on top of it. I don't have to like be in my power. And so I give up that power so I can just relax sometimes. And so I don't like have to use words. I can like make sounds that he gets to decipher however he wants. Puppy play is one of my favorite for sure. We also do princess play. So I'm the princess and he's in a sense like the king, but I don't call him king, but he's
Yeah.
like the caregiver of a little princess.
Yeah.
And so that can often work if you don't like the daddy and little girl dynamic, having like, let me be a princess and you be the person that is taking care of the princess. You could use king or emperor if you wanted to, whatever kind of lands. But even like I've just named like five different ones, there are dozens more that you could get into. So really figuring out like who you are as a masculine, like how you want to show up in this space. And then going into this is often a sexual space. It doesn't have to be, but
Yeah.
it most commonly is a sexual space as well, where we can come to our sexual practice and almost make it into a ritual. They call it scenes in
Yeah.
BDSM. We call it ritual and spirituality. I see a lot of crossover between all of these things. But really what calls to you and like go explore, like literally Google, like name me all of the different Dom sub dynamics that you can think of and go through the Google and just be like, that one sounds trash. I don't like that one. This one I'm kind of interested in. And then do more research on that, figure out what it really means to hold that space for the person and talk to your partner too. When me and Sweet Potato got into this dynamic, we have explored probably over 10, probably 15 different dynamics between us because we're just excited to like try new things. And so this also gives us this opportunity, like basically every couple months, we're like, let's see what this one's like. One thing that we've been trying out lately is servant. And so I'm just like his complete like free use servant. He gets to do whatever he wants. I don't make any decisions at all. I can call my you know word if I need to get out of a scene, but I almost never do. So yeah, like really exploring like where it goes and know that you can start up here and you don't have to be that forever. You can also, I mean, I love boundaries and stuff like that. You can say, let's try this out for a week. If after the week we hate it, we can change it. If after the week we love it, we can change things and go deeper. Or it'll kind of keep leading you down this trail to like what is really something that you want to explore. Because I never thought I would be a servant. I never thought I would be a daddy. And so it really took me like several dynamics for us to get into this one. And I'm sure it will lead more places from here.
And for me, this ties to so much this understanding that we are humans and we are creatures of habit. And it's so easy to get stuck in habits that we never break. And some people are stuck in habits their entire life. And this is not a turned on, aroused, vibrant life. Mixing things up and being curious and playing in these ways helps us just discover things that we like and the things that we don't like. And in that discovery and curiosity is the vitality that brings that charge into the relationship, that we're not just dead and stale, like that we are ever evolving, we're growing, we're discovering. It's like an adventure. It's like going on a vacation somewhere. They're going to the movies, going to these are all experiences to enrich our life in the same way that we're talking about exploring different dynamics, or even as a man focusing on yourself and what it would take to actually be able to do that thing. There's so many things in the sexual world that I have gone into exploring because I wanted to shape a version of myself or discover what I would be like in that situation. How would I show up? So, yeah, just encouraging you all to know that you're probably in patterns, you're probably in habits, you're probably in a certain amount of staleness that could use a little shakeup to discover what's next for you. You're not a stale being. You are an ever-changing, transforming being. So it's good to get in line with that.
One
Lona,
thing I,
go
yep.
ahead.
One thing I love to say is that some people are confused by this role play as like, why would we just pretend to be these things? And the neuroscience behind this is amazing. I'm a huge geek for neuroscience. Your primal brain doesn't know what's real and what's not real. If I think that I'm eating a croissant, my primal brain will think that I had actually eaten that croissant. And so the way to get through to the primal brain is just to pretend, just to act. Like if you smile, even if nothing caused the smile, your primal brain's like, something good must have happened. So by getting into this role, I actually was able to rewrite the trauma because my brain has no idea this isn't my real father. Like my primal brain thinks this is my real father. So I get to keep rewriting what it means to have a father in my life over and over again. And we've been doing this for years now. So the input that my primal brain has of this father figure has now been completely rewritten so that when I think of father, I think of daddy now. I think of this amazing, cultivating, regenerative relationship that nourishes me so that when I see, and this used to happen to me a lot, I'll see another girl out there with like a loving relationship with her real father, used to trigger the fuck out of me because I used to like not understand, like, I couldn't understand how a father could love his daughter. And now I get this new thing where the neural pathway that's been developed to father for me is rewritten in this daddy experience. And so that's how we end up rewriting this trauma. That's how it heals the trauma from the past. And it could also go the other way. You know, if this relationship goes terribly one day and it sort of wrecks it, I'm at risk of like having that trauma rewritten of now daddy is bad again. So I
Mm,
have to like stay on top of it. And we've actually discussed this. Like we've talked about like if we break up, like we have to slowly and easily separate from each other so that we don't do damage to each other's psyches. That's how
mm,
much we care about each other.
mm. Yeah, and in this exploration is the potential to discover newness and what a person needs, what a person wants. So you have to pick your own journey, you have to write your own story, and mostly what we're here today to say is to have fun exploring and trying on. This is where it's fun to try on a different mask, to try on a different role and see what that brings up in you. Lona, what opportunities do listeners have to work with you? We'll put this stuff in the description, but what type of work do you like to do with men?
Yeah, men specifically, I have a program called The Secrets to Male Sexuality. And so this is a really cool coaching program. It's one-on-one coaching with me. It's all online where I help liberate men into their most pleasurable, connected, and masculine that they choose lives so that they can be liberated from all of the things that are holding them back. They can have the best sex of their lives, the best relationships they've ever had, and they can relax into their bodies.
Beautiful. I'll put that in the description. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your magic with us and your experience. And I'm hoping and have a feeling that we'll get some good comments on this one, that we can have some conversations. And I'm grateful that this was the subject we dove into today.
Me too. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Many more episodes to come. Enjoy, explore, and as always, I like to say, the things we don't talk about end up having power over us. So let's talk about these subjects so we have power with them and have better sex, have more sex. All right. See you on the next one.